Hello everybody and welcome back to another exciting edition of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt, the Game Boy, talk you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one cart at a time. This week we'll be looking at a game that's slightly meh. It's Waterworld. People love to rip into bad video games. There are a ton of videos out there showing off the worst game ever, asking questions like how did this get made, and lamenting over the poor child that must eventually receive these titles for Christmas. I even do a little bit of it myself right here on this very channel. But there's not a lot of love for the average game. The games that are competent, but nothing more than that. They'll never appear on a hidden gem list or star in a video where an internet persona trashes their ineptness. They just sit there, between the sofa cushions of good and bad that make up all game critique, and gather lint like an old penny. Waterworld for Game Boy is one such title. Sure, I went into this review thinking this game was going to be terrible. I've played the Super Nintendo title this portable effort tries to replicate the gameplay of, as well as hearing the horror stories of the Virtual Boy game. Regarded by most as the worst game on a system known for terrible titles. And yes, even some of you that have played Waterworld will probably be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, Matt's lost it, that game's fucking terrible. To those people questioning my sanity, I'll ask one simple question. Did you beat the first stage? I know I hadn't. As you see, just like Kevin Costner's recycled urine cocktail at the beginning of Kevin Reynolds' 1995 box office bomb, Waterworld for the Game Boy also opens in a way that makes you raise an eyebrow and leaves an equally nasty taste in your mouth. You see, in an effort to use all three gameplay modes found in the Super Nintendo version of this title, developed by DMA Designs, the Game Boy developers, French-based studio Power and Magic, decided to stagger the gameplay. Stages 1, 3, 5 and 7 are platforming based, while 2, 4 and 6 are sailing levels on the Mariner's Trimaran. But in trying to be true to the movie and the way the platforming sections fall in the Super Nintendo title, the Game Boy game opens with 5 incredibly underwhelming water levels, before a fucking awful boss encounter that plays like the Stampede section of The Lion King. To say this is a dull opening to a game is an understatement. You swim around, collecting such things as bullets to shoot fish, starfish that when you've got 100 grant an extra life, and hearts to refill your health. Collecting bullets is, however, for the most part a waste of time in these early stages, as despite being able to collect about almost 100 or so in the first level, you are reset to 10 at the beginning of the next regardless. The levels are also timed, meaning the level design's seemingly inviting proposition for exploration is probably the fastest way of dying. Well, besides this section's biggest problem, its janky controls that do nothing to help you when combined with exceedingly cheap enemy placement. And so I played these first 2 levels of the first stage thinking, well, this is about as underwhelming as the movie, so at least they got the tone right. Before I swam up through a rock in the 3rd level, and lo and behold, you actually get to dry land. And Kevin Costner can jump, hang from ledges, and swing from objects. Not a technical marvel or anything new, but hey, at least it controls better than the underwater sections, even if it is a little bit floaty. But then, almost instantly, you go back underwater. It's as if the game's trying to tell you, look, bear with us, we know this section's shit, but we need to put it in you. So, you beat the first stage and think, yes, now I can see how this game truly plays. And then you get your first experience of Trimaran sailing. Yes, as previously mentioned, the game's even-numbered stages take place on a boat because, well, that's half the movie. Kevin Costner on a boat. But don't fret, you don't have to talk with little children about not stealing your crayons or your fishy feet. You simply sail from one area to the next, avoiding exploding barrels, enemy smokers on jet skis, and collecting ammo and health to get you through. These sections aren't bad by any means, but they're just not that fun. The explosive barrels sometimes have odd hit detection, and enemy jet skis spawn strategically placed to fuck you over if you collect health or ammo. Then, from the third stage, the true game begins, and, well, to be honest, it's equally underwhelming. Like the previous stages, the level structure is a simple get from point A to B, but instead of fish, you need to fend off armed enemies. Bullets on these stages, however, where they're actually useful, are a little harder to come by, which is a little annoying as most enemies take a minimum of 4 shots to put down. Combine this limited ammo issue with an aggressively ticking timer, it becomes important to the gameplay to know when to fight and when to run. Each of these odd-numbered stages finishes with a boss fight, which is just a regular enemy encounter, but requires a lot more bullets put into them to take them down. Not even the end encounter against the Deacon is anything special. It just requires you to memorise a basic pattern and put 60 slugs in him before you're met with the end credit sequence. Difficulty in both the boat and platforming levels naturally spikes into the higher curve towards the end of the game, where timing and strategic takedowns become key. Not to mention, falling can sometimes result in an early death by you being trapped. But even this need for clinical precision doesn't inject any fun into Waterworld, and I'm sure will just leave most players feeling frustrated. As, despite there being ample opportunity to collect stars for extra lives, you can drain through them even faster. The game does offer 2 continues, but they will put you right back to the start of the stage, not the level you were on. And with no password options, you will see yourself replaying the same missions again and again, in the hopes of getting a little bit further on the next try. I ended up using this handy level select cheat to get back to where I died, as well, fuck replaying those early water levels. Visually, Waterworld isn't that bad a game to look at. It has some interesting sprite work. I'd argue that the Mariner looks more like Kevin Costner than he did on the Super Nintendo version. The game, despite its obvious flaws, very rarely tears, which is more than can be said for most Western developed licensed titles on the Game Boy. And above all else, doesn't try to overkill the detail in the level design. The music too, while limited, is better than the Super Nintendo, but again, like the gameplay on offer here, is pretty average as chiptunes go. And that's why I'm reluctant to label Waterworld a bad game. Do I recommend it? Not really. But do I condemn it? Not really either. It's the first game I think I've ever reviewed I'm truly indifferent to. It controls well for the most part, looks and sounds okay, but it just feels flat. Like, despite talented people working on this title, they had no love or time to put into the game, resulting in a game that you can't help but shrug at. It's published by Ocean, which, apart from being the perfect people to put out a game based entirely on the sea, is probably why the difficulty spikes at the end. But unlike most of their Game Boy output, it didn't frustrate me in the same way as, say, RoboCop did. This is definitely a game only for full setters, as it's starting to demand a pretty high price because of its European exclusivity. But if you do buy it or emulate it, however, just know it's going to be as middle of the road as a game can get. It is a 3 out of 5, a 5 out of 10, and just like the movie it's based on, has some redeeming qualities despite itself. And that brings us to the end of another Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please click the subscribe button and share this channel with other people you think may be interested, because that's how it gets around. If you are a first-time viewer, then why not check out some more of our content, such as the Boyographic videos, where, like this video, I look through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one cart at a time. You can also check out our Boy Curious videos, where I look at bootlegs and oddities for the system, as well as checking out some of our All the Glory videos, where I play through a game, as I do every week to review, cut out all the deaths and all of the faff, leaving you with none of the garbage, but all of the glory. If you want to talk to me before the next video, you can do so in a number of places, such as in the comments. Let me know what you think of Waterworld. But you can also do this on Facebook at facebook.com/Boyographic, as well as on Instagram and Twitter at Gameboy. Until next time, Game Boys and girls, take care of yourselves, but more importantly, Game on.